unification. We are the biggest single market. Say no more to the colonial racket. They don't care, them never will be fair. Let's come together and grab our share. Join the fast track to prosperity. We want food and energy security till eternity. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa is a belief. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. All Africa, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, Angola, Rwanda, Morocco, Barbados, Zimbabwe. This is Africa's time. Africa. Let every clock chime. It's not about you, in spite of you. Africa will unite. Let this word sink in your head. Divide and rule is there. All Africa, Ethiopia, Mali, Cameroon, Kenya, Tunisia, Haiti, Namibia now.
Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their land.
Well then, a big fraud is the system. We are tired of being the victims of their faraway wars. Tear down the Berlin walls. Because don't bother with them borders. Africa is free forever. Trade free, move free. My sister, my brother. We don't need no visa from north to the south. Take the train from the east to the west. Direct flight from Accra to Kingston. 5G internet no matter where me there. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Yes, I believe, yeah. Africa, Africa, yeah. All Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Congo, Tanzania, Egypt, Guyana, South Africa, yeah. Tell them no dollarization, true unification. We are the biggest single market. Say no more to the colonial racket. They don't care, them never will be fair. Let's come together and grab our share. Join the fast track to prosperity. We want food and energy security till eternity. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa is a belief. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. All Africa, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, Angola, Rwanda, Morocco, Barbados, Zimbabwe now. This is Africa's time. Africa. Let every clock chime. It's not about you, in spite of you. Africa will unite. Let this word sink in your head. Divide and rule is there. All Africa, Ethiopia, Mali, Cameroon, Kenya, Tunisia, Haiti, Namibia now.
Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their land.
Well then, a big fraud is the system. We are tired of being the victims of their faraway wars. Tear down the Berlin walls. Make us don't bother with them borders. Africa is free forever. Trade free, move free. My sister, my brother. We don't need no visa from north to the south. Take the train from the east to the west. Direct flight from Accra to Kingston. 5G internet no matter where me there. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Yes, I believe, yeah. Africa, Africa, yeah. All Africa. Ghana. Nigeria, Congo, Tanzania, Egypt, Guyana, South Africa, yeah. Tell them no dollarization, true unification. We are the biggest single market. Say no more to the colonial racket. They don't care, them never will be fair. Let's come together and grab our share. Join the fast track to prosperity. We want food and energy security till eternity. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yes, I believe. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. All Africa. Senegal. Côte d'Ivoire. Angola. Rwanda. Morocco. Barbados. Zimbabwe now. This is Africa's time. Africa. Let every clock chime. It's not about you in spite of you. Africa will unite. Let this word sink in your head. Divide and rule is there. All Africa. Ethiopia. Mali. Cameroon. Kenya. Tunisia. Haiti. Namibia now.
Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their land.
Well then, a big fraud is the system. We are tired of being the victims of their faraway wars. Tear down the Berlin walls. Make us don't bother with them borders. Africa is free forever. Trade free, move free. My sister, my brother. We don't need no visa from north to the south. Take the train from the east to the west. Direct flight from Accra to Kingston. 5G internet no matter where me there. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Yes, I believe, yeah. Africa, Africa, yeah. All Africa. Ghana. Nigeria. Congo. Tanzania. Egypt. Guyana. South Africa, yeah. Tell them no dollarization, true unification. We are the biggest single market. Say no more to the colonial racket. They don't care, them never will be fair. Let's come together and grab our share. Join the fast track to prosperity. We want food and energy security till eternity. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Do you believe? I believe in Africa. Africa is a belief. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. All Africa, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, Angola, Rwanda, Morocco, Barbados, Zimbabwe. This is Africa's time. Africa. Let every clock chime. It's not about you, in spite of you. Africa will unite. Let this word sink in your head. Divide and rule is there. All Africa, Ethiopia, Mali, Cameroon, Kenya, Tunisia, Haiti, Namibia now.
Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their land.
Well then, a big fraud is the system. We are tired of being the victims of their faraway wars. Tear down the Berlin walls. Because don't bother with them borders. Africa is free forever. Trade free, move free. My sister, my brother. We don't need no visa from north to the south. Take the train from the east to the west. Direct flight from Accra to Kingston. 5G internet no matter where me there. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Yes, I believe, yeah. Africa, Africa, yeah. All Africa. Ghana. Nigeria, Congo, Tanzania, Egypt, Guyana, South Africa, yeah. Tell them no dollarization, true unification. We are the biggest single market. Say no more to the colonial racket. They don't care, them never will be fair. Let's come together and grab our share. Join the fast track to prosperity. We want food and energy security till eternity. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Do you believe? I believe in Africa. Africa is a belief. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. I believe in Africa. Africa, yeah. All Africa, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, Angola, Rwanda, Morocco, Barbados, Zimbabwe now. This is Africa's time. Africa. Let every clock chime. It's not about you, in spite of you. Africa will unite. Let this word sink in your head. Divide and rule is there. All Africa, Ethiopia, Mali, Cameroon, Kenya, Tunisia, Haiti, Namibia now.
Africa is far from being poor. It is Africans who are poor, not Africa. And they are poor because of the uncounted profit that has been made out of the exploitation of their labor and their lands.
Well then, a big fraud is the system. We are tired of being the victim.
Last night, and thank you very much for being here with us this morning. Thank you for waking up early and joining us for this all-important press briefing. We will be talking about interoperability, continental interoperability. We know we have it here in Ghana, and so that's what we're going to be talking about. The Africa Prosperity Network, as it were, are organizers of Africa Prosperity Dialogues, and we do not just limit ourselves to prosperity narratives. We're about actionable policies, we're about bankable projects, and in a nutshell, our activities are architected towards Africa prosperity, or Africa's prosperity, as it were. This morning, we're joined by some very special guests, some very important people who will be expanding on interoperability across Africa. We have been working for some time now to make this a possibility in terms of policy and later on towards implementation. Joining us today, we have our Executive Chairman of the Africa Prosperity Network, who is Mr. Gabi Asare-Okyere-Darko. We also have with us member of the board, that is Mr. Gerhard Mensah. We have with us Mr. Ken Shibi, who is joining us this morning as an expert on the subject matter. We also have with us this morning our General Manager at the Africa Prosperity Network, Stephanie Giatta. My name is Prince Moses, and we will start this with a word from the Chairman and Executive Chairman and founder of the Africa Prosperity Network for a few words, and also to explain to you why we're here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, Mr. Asare-Okyere-Darko.
Good morning. Ken Ashibe is the CEO of the Chamber of Telcos in Ghana. Gerhard Mensah is the Executive Director of APN, who was, for a long time, was in the telco business. So there's probably a bias why we are focusing on telcos. Essentially, I'm sure you know about Africa Prosperity Network. It's an organization, not-for-profit organization, set up about 3 or so years ago, where our main focus is essentially how to build a network of private sector operators on the continent of Africa, to think together, plan together, and work together with the political leaders on the continent. So we are looking at the business leaders, political leaders, thought leaders, essentially on how to, if you like, deepen prosperity on the continent. And through things that, if you like, enhance greater intra-African trade, commerce, investment, and ultimately, we believe in the single market has been created. The single market started, I believe, through AFCFTA, 1st January 2021. It's supposed to be 2020, but somehow it got delayed. And Ghana happened to be strategically where the secretariat of the AFCFTA is. Some of us believe that getting the single market working is one of the surefire ways of accelerating development and prosperity on the continent. Because you are talking about a continent of 1.4 billion people. I believe we share a GDP of about 3.4 trillion, which can grow if we can work together more, trade among ourselves more. When you look at the trade figures among Africans within Africa, it's extremely low. I believe it's around 15% or so. Whereas if you compare to other markets, regional markets such as the EU, I believe it's around 65–70%. And so we are looking at ways on how to get Africans to work together, to trade among themselves, to do business among ourselves. And interoperability. If you like, was it last 2 years ago, we were told that mobile money transactions on the continent was around $836 billion. And this is without me being able to use my mobile wallet. Do I even have one? My mobile wallet to buy something in another country. This is just within the various countries. So it tells you the potential if we can actually get to a point where we can get to use our mobile wallet to buy or sell something in another country. And so that's why we're here. But I will pass on to Gerhard, I believe, who will give you a clearer understanding of how we intend to go ahead with this. But when we met at the Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024 in Peduasi in January this year, after 3 days of discussions and conversations and speeches and brainstorming, we came out with a compact, what was called the Peduasi Compact, and there were several items on it. And among the items was how to achieve continent-wide interoperability. And it is, our focus has been how we can, as Africa Prosperity Network, among with our partners, how we can push the advocacy of getting a continent-wide interoperability working. And I'll leave it to the experts, but they will tell you interoperability is not just about mobile phones, it's also about other payment systems, platform. It could be just banks, or it could be just mobile money, or it could be a combination of the banking system, banking platforms, and mobile money platforms. So that's why we are here, and it will need the support of the media, because in a sense that we are told that the technology is there, we are told that the resources are there, but it needs political will. It needs the buy-in of the central banks. It needs the buy-in of the regulators. It needs, more importantly, the buy-in of the leadership on the continent, leadership in the regions, leadership in the various countries. And we believe that if we can get interoperability working, particularly in the areas where tens and millions of medium and small and micro scale enterprises on the continent operate, it will really make meaningful the whole idea of intra-African trade, because I'm a fashion designer in Ghana. I can market my stuff online, and then people in various countries across the continent can buy from me. And what it does also, some may say that We have issues with logistics and transport. But once you create the demand, then the investments into logistics and transport on how to easily trade among ourselves as a continent will follow. So that's why we are here, and thank you so much. And I will leave it to the experts to continue. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have Mr. Gerhard Mensah, who is board member at APN, that is the Africa Prosperity Network. He has a rich experience in journalism, communication, and public affairs planning. 37 years. He has been leading this effort. He was recently in Kigali for a similar meeting where he explained to a group of very important people why interoperability is needed across Africa. Mr. Gerhard.
Thank you very much, Prince, and good morning to all of you. The Executive Chairman of APN has set the stage for the reason why we are here today. And basically, it is to announce the upcoming International Symposium on Interoperability. It's scheduled for July the 5th of July, and the Africa Prosperity Network is organizing this together with the Secretariat of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The purpose of the symposium is to advance interoperability. And normally when we talk about interoperability, we seem to focus on mobile interoperability. And that is actually what the symposium would focus on. But I think it's important for us also to understand that interoperability is a broader concept. There is interoperability in health service delivery. There is interoperability in custom procedures and processes. There is interoperability across the various areas that would lead to Africa integration. But for now, the focus is on mobile interoperability. And that is what the symposium would address under the theme, scaling up interoperability using your mobile device to buy and sell across Africa. That is the theme for the symposium. I would want to place on record quickly that when we talk about mobile interoperability, it's also about being able to receive and make calls using your phone, particularly within the African continent, as the focus now or at the moment is Africa integration. So it's about your wallet, and it's about your ability to make calls as well. You all know the world in which we are today. It is an extremely interconnected world. And in the context in which we find ourselves, payment infrastructure, as the executive chairman made reference to, has become extremely important. Within Ghana at the moment, there are loads and loads of people who do not have a shop, but they are selling. And we buy from them. And we are able to receive the items we buy, and we are able to pay for them remotely. Again, as the chairman said, this is about 1.3 trillion in terms of value. Imagine scaling this up, and we being able to do this across countries. I mean, eventually maybe borderless commerce within Africa. The criticality of this is also in the fact that when today you talk about trade within Africa, 90% of that trade is driven by what we refer to as SMEs, small and medium scale enterprises, who do not really have the muscle to do the kind of movement of goods and services across borders. And so that should tell you how important interoperability will be to SMEs and eventually to African trade. The other issue which is of extreme interest is the fact that the 90% of SMEs who are engaged in African trade, the structure of that 90% is such that 50% of them are women. And we keep talking about financial inclusion and the extent to which women largely have been excluded from the concept of financial inclusion, owning a bank account, taking part in commercial activities and all that. So it tells us the potential that interoperability has, not just for African trade, but also for financial inclusion. The fact that 50% of SMEs or 50% of the 90% are women tells us, for me, it tells me an interesting story. And it points to the fact that probably when it comes to contesting for public office, you might not find our women there that much. Because as we speak today, we have only 20% of women constituting the total number of parliamentarians, only 20%. But we have 50% of them taking part in intra-African trade. So they are not there when it is about asking for your votes, but when it comes to asking for a share of your wallet, a share of your pocket, they are there. And APN believes that supporting interoperability, a pan-African interoperability, would help promote the extent to which women get integrated in the commerce of this continent. We are persuaded that we are at the junction today where African leaders must take the center stage in promoting interoperability. And not just the political leaders, but we are also talking about industry leaders. That's why we have Ken Ashibe here. And to the extent that we are talking about an international pan-African interoperability, the Africa Prosperity Network is also in consultation with key industry players across the continent to come out with what is it that can be the roadmap towards an Africa interoperability. It will help to point out that, for example, the Afrexim Bank, in collaboration with other African central banks, set up the Pan-African Payment and Settlement Systems, which has come to be known as PAPS. That was a bold attempt at trying to resolve an aspect of what we are discussing today. PAPS promises to lower transaction costs, given the fact that in our countries today, and given the kinds of borders that exist, even non-tariff barriers continue to create cost implications for the kinds of things that we want to do across borders when it comes to trade. And so interoperability is very critical, given the fact that it will help us to surmount some of these challenges that we are having. But we are very clear in our mind that beyond African leaders, we need industry players. We need the private sector. We need the banks. We need the telecoms operators in order to ensure that we are able to synchronize our activities, our agenda, our vision, our programs in such a way that we are able to achieve what we want to. At the end of the day, what APN is looking at is prosperity for Africa. And prosperity for Africans can only come if we are able to integrate our economies, align our value chains, and make sure that we trade a lot more amongst ourselves. We have everything on this continent. We can shut this continent down and we'll be self-sufficient. I mean, that is not a proposal that I'm making. It is just for us to understand that if we are able to align and integrate our economies, we can bring prosperity to the hard-working people of this country. Now to the International Symposium. It will take the form of panel discussions. There will be workshops. We're looking at a broad spectrum of participants from the telecom sector, from the banking sector, from businessmen, from politicians, policymakers, and we will sit together and discuss this topic and try to establish what is it that we need to do, either by way of advocacy, by way of infrastructure build, in order to bring interoperability to reality. We at APN remain committed to advocating for a continent-wide interoperability. Whilst we engage with stakeholders in order to bring this to fruition, we will continue in the pursuit of our vision of a digitally and economically integrated Africa, where seamless interaction between financial and telecommunications platforms would enhance intra-African trade, create access to markets and services, and deliver prosperity to the people of this continent. We invite the media to join us on this journey. The symposium alone would not be enough for the advocacy. Your insightful writings, the kinds of discussions that you have on your radio, television platforms, and of course, APN is there as a resource for you. If we pick this topic together and pursue it, I am persuaded that we would be able to make a better impact and also move the needle towards the integration of our continent, which we badly need at this time. I would pause here, and at the right time, if you need any clarifications between my executive chairman and Ken and myself, I believe we should be able to assist with those clarifications. I thank you very much.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So next is Mr. Engineer Kenneth Ashibe, CEO, Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. I met this gentleman in Barcelona while we were on Engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashibe, CEO, Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. I met this wonderful gentleman in Barcelona when we were advocating for interoperability across Africa. Now, the Africa Prosperity Network is a very serious organization. When we decide to do something, we go all out. And we get the support of some of the brilliant minds and some of the brilliant organizations. We've been doing this for only 3 years, as you heard from our executive chairman, and everyone is on board with us because it is time that Africa took charge of its own prosperity narrative. So, ladies and gentlemen, a brilliant mind, Mr. Dr. Kenneth Ashibe.
Thank you very much. You see, you struggle. Just make it Kenneth Ashibe. Togbi is fine. Let me start off by telling you a story. So I went to Abuja for a conference. And so, you know, I was giving a bill. I paid when I got in with a card. Then I get back to Accra, and then this lady is calling me frantically. Apparently, I slept 3 nights. She had billed me only 2 nights. So I had to pay her in Abuja for the 3rd night, otherwise she will lose her job. How was I going to pay her? How was I going to send that money to her? So there was a struggle. Finally, I had to call one of my friends who live in Lagos. He had also traveled then. You know, I think I even reached out to Eli and all, Eli Hini. So it was one of them who paid. I still have not even paid done a refund to the person. You see how difficult it is for us to be able to do a simple thing like pay for a hotel bill. But if it was in any other country, I would have been able to do it. If I wanted to pay her to pay it, then it means I needed to go through, it would be from CD to dollar or to euro before it goes to naira. So at both ends, we will all lose, and somebody is sitting in the middle as Africa. And if we continue to do that, how do we think we're going to make any progress? So look at the Ghana example. When we took interoperability and what interoperability has done for us. It has made, now it's possible for you from in the past, if you had to do a transaction between even the EMIs, the various mobile money, you would have to go through some other model and the cost of doing it. And you could not even, and then pushing it to a bank was another case altogether. Then we're not going to talk about e-switch. So now the fintechs are also integrated on the MMI, the mobile money interoperability. And the sweet thing there is that look at the way it happened. It was a partnership between government GIPS and the private sector working hand in glove to make that happen. And it has happened, and it has changed the way things would go. If you go back and look at the Findex report, what mobile money has done for financial inclusion, the traditional banks will still not be able to do it. If you left them, they've been here for several years because the way we are formatted as a continent is completely different. So we are not going to, when mobile money came in, it did not ask us to change the way we lived, but it allowed us to live the way we lived, do businesses the way we've done, and still be able to become included. And for me, I don't like talking about informal. We are not informal. Our MSMEs are not informal. That is the way we do our businesses. India has shown the way that you are able to use this critical mass to develop. And the time has come for us to be able to do that. After would not happen if we don't integrate our payment systems. The only way after what happened, the only way AU will happen is when people are doing business together. It's not about the politicians going to drink tea. That one is communum tea. That's not what's going on. It's about people working together. So let me go to Nima on Wednesday, the Nima market. You see how the places people travel to come and sell their goods. So inter-African business has been happening. The only way is how do we facilitate that? How do we ensure that we take the bottlenecks out of it? And as has been said at the APN dialogue that happened, Africa leads the mobile money conversation. So if we really would want to integrate and get businesses happening, the place to do it is to make sure that we are interoperable. And to do it on the platform, the fintech platform, using mobile money as a base and allowing our fintechs to also be able to then operate on that. And for me, the sweet thing about this thing is that you do a conference, and out of the conference, policies are beginning to happen. Changes are beginning to happen. And so this conversation, you and I as journalists, is really the time for us to all hold it and see how do we take it to the next level. Even for you, doing business amongst yourself, we've not been able to build the African, media because we are also not integrated. So on the back of this interoperability that would happen with something that is, you see, mobile money is indigenously African. It is about us. It's the way we do our things. It's the thing that has been able to create. Look at some of the new African businesses that are coming up. A lot of them are coming on the back of fintech. A lot of were developed, even in Ghana. So you have the likes of ZPays and all of that beginning to happen. Which are indigenously us and building to the next level. You have young people who are just starting up and they are able to do this. So if we can create that platform for them, get the AU to agree that this is the way to go, get our central banks to also agree that this is the way to go. PAPS is great. If all of us, if we could get all the other banks, central banks to also come onto PAPS and allow an integration with mobile money, allow an integration with the fintechs, you know, that is where the solutions are going to happen. Because you see, the solutions again are not in the heads of all of you who are here. You are all old people. Oh. It's in the head of my children who are in school. Those who are playing with AI, those who are playing with big data. How are they going to use that to be able to resolve the problems of our farmers? How are they going to use that to be able to resolve the problems of our traders? And make sure that we can work together, and the borders that have been created, we can blur them. Fortunately for us, with the back of 5G coming, AI, big data, Pentecost is going to happen again, but it's going to happen technologically. Remember what happened on Pentecost Day, where when I speak in Hebrew, you could hear in Amharic. That is going to happen on the back of AI. So the issues about language that I speak, I don't speak Swahili, you don't speak Ewe, it's all going to go. They would be able to do that. So let's make sure we can get this interoperability happening, the payment system rightly set in place, get people to begin to do business together as Africans, and definitely then we'll take our destiny into our hands, and the prosperity of Africa would happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I did talk about how important our vision is and why people and institutions have been backing us with vigor. I will give you a number of the institutions that are our partners in this in this work that we're doing. And so we have the Presidency of Ghana, we have the African Continental Free Trade Area, we have the United Nations in Ghana, including the World Food Programme, UNDP, ECA, UNIDO. We've got the Afro-Exim Bank. We've got the African Development Bank. I think I must have mentioned it already, AFDB. We've got BADEA. We've got the Africa America Institute. We've got Africa Soft Power. And we've got GIPC also helping us with their colleagues from across Africa. We will move on to the next speaker, who is Mr. Samuel Amano, who is CEO of Blue Space.
Good morning, everyone. And on behalf of Africa Prosperity Network, I want to say thank you for the opportunity that you've created for us to create something I call prosperity. Prosperity cannot happen without opportunity. And interoperability is going to open up this opportunity we've been talking about. A lot of the fintechs in Ghana have really created prosperity and jobs for people by basically building platforms. Platforms to connect one person to the other, platforms to allow someone to basically shorten the time it takes them to do a trade. What interoperability represents is basically allowing the borders to be blurred. It removes the lines that separates us. Nigeria is in ECOWAS, yet we cannot trade, as Dr. Ashigbe mentioned. Interoperability is going to remove those lines. It's the eraser to bring us together. It's the eraser that will bring the selling and the buying to another level. It's the eraser that we need to prevent these invisible lines that have been painted since Agenda 2063. And I believe that we're all in this together. I'm calling on the fintechs, I'm calling on the regulators, and as Chairman has basically been pushing, this is very, very important. Integration does not happen overnight. Let me share a story. I'm a Ghana guy with a Krobo background. I don't speak Aigbe, but I speak broken English. Broken English was the only language I could speak when I was in Nigeria, because certain parts of Nigeria, they could not understand my native language, which is Ghana. But the moment I spoke broken English, the lines of communication opened up. Interoperability is that broken English that we're talking about. It's going to allow all of us to speak the same language when it comes to finance, the same language when it comes to data, the same language when it comes to borders. And we will trade like never before, and opportunity is here. I'm entreating all the young people who are looking for jobs. AI is here. Start looking at solutions you can build that will plug into the future of this interoperable money network. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now it's time for questions and answers. So we will take a few. I think we will take about 3 of them, 3 in batches of 3. The gentleman over there, yes.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Nana Puku from Daily Searchlight. Talking about interoperability, everybody are talking about currencies. Now we know that in Africa, we have different countries using different currencies without a common currency. And how are you going to integrate all this into a common currency where one can just say, stay in Accra here, buy something, say, Johannesburg, and then can pay through a very common medium that is acceptable to all the partners?
Okay. Can we have the next question?
My name is Emmanuel. I work with Top TV, Top Radio. In as much as we are all looking forward for this to happen, what do you make of the unstable internet connectivity and power generation across the West African sub-region?
The third question, please. Okay, so we have 2 questions for now. The first will go to Dr. Ashibe, and it is on cross-currencies and cross-rate. The second will be on infrastructure and energy. You can take both, I suppose.
Right. So I think sometimes we put these hurdles ahead of us. And I want to answer them by, how many of you have traveled to any other African country and you've done roaming? You have. Which country was that? Gambia and Senegal. You roamed. So between, you had your data that you had bought with CDs, went, and in a Dalasi country, you were able to talk. And what happened? Settlement happened. So the technologies exist. The frameworks exist. PAPS is happening currently. You are able to send money across. So we should not allow that they've put that there. Who says it has to be in euro, or who says it has to be in dollar? So we need to get our central banks coming together, because already it's happening. I've shown you on not something that would happen, but something that he has done already, where we are able to even roam, and then settlements are made. So the technology exists, the frameworks exist. We can do it. So that's why we need to push for that to happen. The question you asked is a very important question. The issues about power, the issues about connectivity is really, really important. And it's going to be the bedrock for that to happen. Again, you know that a lot of you are able to do transactions without internet on the USSD platform. So that one, even if you have 2G and you are interoperable, you can do that on the 2G platforms. So let's use what we have to be able to build what we want to get. But as we talk about that, that's why for me, the AP network, once they also are bringing the governments in, they're bringing the AU in, so that the governments need to pay attention to that. So that when you then make sure you bring policies in place that would ensure that, you get the growth of this infrastructure, you get investments into these places. So we've had on the 14th of March, we had this fiber disruption and the sea fiber disruption. I think in May as well, in the South African areas, 2 cables again were disrupted. It means we need to start paying attention to how are we going to improve our resilience? Are we going to be able to get to a point where we are because already a lot of our countries are interconnected when it comes to power, and we sell power amongst ourselves. On those power pylons, are we going to be able to put some terrestrial fiber also onto that and be able to grow that? Do we then see these things that, because you are building interoperability, you then realize that these are the internet and then your telecom infrastructure and the financial infrastructure are then the utilities that would enable works to go. What would also happen is that once you start doing that, you create the demand. So even in areas where in the past, and Ghana is another example again, so the NCA decided that they were going to allow the telcos, the rural telephony, the spectrum they have for them to be able to do 3G, not only 2G. And you will find out that the reasons that a lot of these have developed is that once you put the network there, it's not about people just talking. They are doing business. They're doing mobile money. So you create a demand. And once you create that demand with interoperability, what will happen is that a small country like Gambia, for example, the telcos will think that it's good enough for them to be able to go there, to go and set up. The fintechs will think so you create the demand. So the most important thing is to put these rails together so that we can use these rails to drive the prosperity in and be able to bring our people on. It is the thing that is going to capacitate our people to be able to do the things that they are doing already in a better way.
All right, thank you very much.
Let me just add one.
Okay, we'll have another contribution.
About power, I'll get to currency. About power and internet. With all the challenges that we have, we saw $836 billion worth of mobile money transactions in Africa. With all the problems that we have, show me one platform on the continent that generated that amount of transaction. Okay? And it can only get better, because if you have more business, then there's more investment in the infrastructure. So I think that's important. Now the currency thing, I think he actually touched on it. Even at the recent 3i Summit, I think it was BridgeX, they did a demonstration because Central Bank has this innovation sandbox. And a company called BridgeX, even on that stage, I think it was a side event to the 3i Summit, they showed how they can swap a currency swap platform where you can send, you can buy something from another country, even outside of PAPS, without necessarily having to go through pounds, sterling, euros, or dollar. We spend apparently about $5 billion in transaction cost alone, because we go through dollar, we go through euro in order to trade among ourselves on the continent. And why should this $5 billion be going outside of Africa? If we can get our central banks to speak to each other, if we can get our regulators to speak to each other, so really, as Kenneth said, mobile money is the way to go. Africa is in the lead. According to, I think, AFDB, 50% of adults in Africa last year received or sent digital payment. 50%. And that's up by 34%, on the previous year. So really, we are in the lead. It is how we can optimize the benefit, particularly for ordinary Africans trying to do business. And today, as we know, young people, you can stay in your garage or bedroom, have a computer, have some ideas, and be able to sell online. Okay? So there's a huge market here. It's the way to go. How do we help facilitate it? And that's why we are here. And we need the support of the media to get the politicians, particularly at the AU level. And let me say one thing. In July, I think between 18th to 22nd July this year, there will be a mid-year AU summit here in Accra. The last time we had a mid-year AU summit was in 2007, if you remember, okay, where you had Gaddafi and all of them attending. That was the last time. Fortunately, our president is the chairperson of the financial, what's it called? Come and say it. What is it?
Alliance of African Financial Multilateral Institutions.
Excellent. So what we are doing with our partners is how we can push this interoperability issue to even be an agenda item at the AU Summit. Because once the heads of states and government buy into it and accept it, then there's pressure on their central banks, on their regulators. And also there's an incentive for the private sector operators to also invest more to make it happen. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gabby. Can we have the next question, please?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Karen from Asase Radio.
Thank
So
you,
you've mentioned You've mentioned a number of agencies and organizations that the APN is working with in the upcoming symposium. I want to know if you can sum up a key goal or policy that you are aiming for at the end of the symposium.
That will go to the chairman, Gayhart. Okay, so. All right.
Thank you. The name is Justice, Africa Commodities Report, and then the Shinwa News Agency. Now, yes, there is the demand, actually, especially among African businessmen and especially small-scale businessmen, for this interoperability. But when you look at, even in country, when you look at the charges that you have to go through, and I want Dr. Kenashigbe to respond to this, whilst the APN also tells us how they are going to discuss this among the partners. Some of the charges when you do even mobile money in country is becoming a bit prohibitive, especially for small scale business people, because you plan your budget and then just sending money to your suppliers and so on takes a significant percentage of your finance in a day and in a month. So what are we going to do to ensure that, yes, let us have it, at the core, the average small-scale businessman, small-scale exporter, etc., that's into their capital. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Akol Moses. I correspond for Bloomberg. Hello, yeah. My question is somewhat related to what my colleague Justice asked. We host the African Continental Free Trade Area, but we are yet to have evidence of how Ghanaian companies have benefited from being the host of such a beautiful enterprise. And so I ask, how do you use this platform, APN, to champion a cause that makes Ghanaian businesses competitive? Here, I want to be a Ghanaian first, even on the African continent. If you look at, we have the highest interest rates in Sub-Saharan Africa, among others, or among the highest. Taxes, we have e-levies, we have a myriad of issues that make the Ghanaian business nigh uncompetitive, not to mention the power issues that we also have. So how do we use APN to make Ghana competitive? Because even in the fintech space and what have you, when you do these transactions, and look at inflation, look at the way the exchange rate pressures are all hitting us, it will look like your colleague who is doing similar thing in a similar African country will be more profitable. And even the cost of funding also becomes an issue when you're looking at the rate at which we borrow to transact on the continent. So how do we make Ghana competitive? Now, how do you also get the buy-in of leaders who are, one, politicians, I'm referring to African leaders, and who have different focuses, from what has been envisaged by APN. Some of us are still seem to be seeing Quasar and the France and some influence here and there. Some of us, the Anglophones, want seem to be running our own show in a way. Then we have internal political issues that we're dealing with. So how do you get us to sing this song? Because at least Nkrumah tried that and failed, largely. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So questions from Karen, Justice and Akor. We have Karen asking about the key policy we will be working on. That will go to you, Gayhart. For Justice, it's the demand for interoperability and its prohibitive costs and the cost of digital transactions. Ken will take that. Akor asked for the evidence or an evidence of how Ghanaian companies have benefited. Unfortunately, we do not have a rep of AFCFT over here. She was supposed to come and talk about the digital protocol on digital transactions, and so we'll take this later. We also have a representative of the BOG. I don't know if he's here. If he's not, we will take that later as well. Thank you very much.
Karen, thank you very much for your question. It's about the key goal for the advocacy on interoperability. So we have long-term goals, we have short-term goals. I think I'll take you through those so that we have the context right. So at Africa Prosperity Network, our ultimate goal is prosperity for Africans, okay? We are persuaded that that can be achieved through continental integration by Africa trading a lot more among or within the continent. When you take the international symposium that we are organizing on interoperability, at the end of the day, we are looking to develop a blueprint, a policy framework for interoperability within Africa. Okay. The other short-term goal is to place interoperability on the front burner of the African Union, of the Union of African Leaders, so that when they have their meeting here in July and depart, one of the key issues that they would go home with is how do they support this effort at Pan-Africa interoperability. So those are the two immediate goals that we want to achieve. But at the end of the day, we want Africa to trade a lot more within the continent. We want to promote Pan-African financial inclusion, where even if you don't have access to a bank account because of the requirements, you have a wallet, you can transact, you can pay, you can engage in commerce. Okay. All right, thank you.
So, on the issue of the cost of transactions on the various platforms, and so one of the objectives of interoperability would be to reduce the cost. Again, I would want to take you, maybe because of the engineer in me, I like to use scenarios. So let's go back and look at before interoperability. What was the cost if I wanted to send money from, say, Vodafone Cash to then MTN? So you had somebody sitting in the middle who was charging you so much, you know, and then when interoperability came, those costs then came down. And the interesting thing again is that if you look at the interoperability itself, the cost is the area in which it's going is that it's showing that it's trending downwards. Fortunately for us in Ghana, the two candidates who have members of parliament, you know, who have representation in parliament, have promised us that they will take the e-levy off. You know, so when that one comes, definitely next year, we are sure that whoever comes in, is going to go off. And hopefully, the rest of Africa would also begin to see it. It's not only Ghana. Kenya is also doing a few things around this digital taxes and all of that. But the aim of interoperability, it would be to reduce the cost. And so, and then again, once you start looking, when the volumes start coming in, the thing that everybody will want to do is to drop the cost. You know, because again, look at it. You remember that when e-levy came, at least some of the telcos reduced their cost, their charges. They did. You know, so in the technology field, it's a Pest-West game. It's you know, that's what it is. But the only thing that makes the Pest-West meaningful is the fact that you get the volumes, so that you are able to go above your fixed cost, and then you play around those margins. So if you can bring a lot of us in, and that over $850 billion that we did, that can go further up. What it would mean is that for people to get a fair share of that, they need to reduce their cost. And again, what are we doing at this stage? At this stage, compare it when you are transferring money as a small person, even if you decide that you want to transfer to the bank. Or you know there are other informal means of transferring money where you give it to somebody who will travel to Lagos, travel to Bamako, and go and give it. Ask them how much they pay for that. So definitely, this is definitely going to be a positive one. But we all need to push for the cost of doing the business to come down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Evidence of how Ghanaian companies may have benefited anyone for that? No, as I said, AFCFTA is not here, and we're sorry about that. And then the buy-in of politicians with different focus areas. We will give this to the executive chairman.
I'm not too sure where that's going. I think Ken answered that question. But I think what we are looking for is the buy-in of political leaders across the continent. That's really where our focus is. In Ghana, it's obvious that the leadership sees this scope of digitalization as a way for the continent. So if there's a promise that they will get rid of the e-levy, I think we must welcome that. But it was actually interesting. Just last week, we saw the figures of the total value of mobile money transactions for the first 4 months of 2024. And it stood at a record 779 billion cedis for the first 4 months of this year. About 41.55% year-on-year growth. So in spite of the challenges with internet, with power, with e-levy, we are still seeing growth in that area, okay? And whatever that has to be done to encourage more growth, we should do. But all we are saying is that the potential is huge. And you know, look, online sales is also one way of dealing with unemployment, okay? Because on this continent, we have a market of 1.4 billion and growing. 1.4 billion. And if 50% of adults in Africa, and adults are from the age of 18, by the way, okay? 50% of adults in Africa did some form of digital payment, whether receiving or sending. It tells you the potential. And we are saying, I heard a Bloomberg reporter mention Nkrumah started something and it failed. Okay? Maybe the continent was not ready for it. Okay? But we are ready. The political leadership are saying that let's have a single market. All we are saying is that technology is way ahead, and technology is the way to achieve this single market. Because Africa is ahead in terms of the use of digital payment platforms and the rest of it. So let's exploit it further. And let's make sure that it cuts across borders. Let's make sure that we take away the borders. As we heard Sami said, let's take away what? It fades away the borders. So really, we need your support as the media, because at the end of the day, it is not for the primary benefit of the telcos. It is not for the primary benefit of the fintech, but it's for the benefit of MSMEs across the continent. It's for the benefit of you in your house who have started some small business that you know that you can sell it. But we are telling you it's not just this 33 million market in Ghana that you have access to, but a 1.4 billion market across the continent. So yes, we believe that there's a political will to make it happen. And the thing about politicians also, they like things where their numbers are, okay? He's a fintech man. But when we had the brainstorming session, he said, let's start with mobile money interoperability, okay? It may not benefit, but he knows that that's where, you know, I like using words, that's the sexy aspect of it. Because it even tickles the fancy of the politician, because they know that it means hundreds of millions of Africans can operate in that area. It means that the Ghanaian who is here and has ideas and has a platform but doesn't know how to sell, to use that platform, maybe regionally, continentally, will have that. It helps deal with the issues of unemployment. It helps deals with businesses growing so they can employ more people because their market is greater than Accra, than Ghana, than West Africa, but across the continent. So really it is the way to go, and we believe that if we make the case persuasively, because the elements are there to make that case, the politicians will buy into it. And we are not talking about politicians just here, because I think Ghana, the Ghanaian politicians have it. They are the one. This was the first country, Kenneth, correct me if I'm wrong, to have interoperability.
The way we have done ours.
The way we've done ours, yes. Which is what? Can you explain that to us?
So interoperability is various folds. We've done interoperability amongst the MNOs. We've done interoperability with the banks. We integrated eSwitch. We've now integrated the fintechs. So now the fintechs are interoperable not through if they had EMI partners. They directly are also interoperable. So you have different layers of interoperability that really makes it now that once you have a wallet, you might not necessarily have the wallet even on a telco-based EMI. You still will be able to connect some way with a bank. To the extent that now I'm sure most of us are remittances that come. They don't go to, you don't walk to any place to go and collect it. They come directly onto your wallet. You might not even have a mobile money account. They will find a way, it will find you. With people like the things that Sami and Co does, it would find you some way. So interoperability is really integrated, and I'm pretty sure that's what would give Ghana the voice to be able to project this, into other spaces, using that as an example of, of the way it ought to be done.
Doctor, can I call you back to explain what EMI is?
Okay, so I'm here today at not the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications, but the CEO of the EMI Chamber of Ghana, which is a sister chamber to the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. The EMIs are electronic money issuers. So we have AT Money, we have MTN Mobile Money Limited, then we have G Money, which is a bank-based mobile money. Then we have Telecel Cash, another telco-based one. Then we have ZPay. ZPay is an EMI, but it's a fintech-based. It does not own any telco, but it's a fintech-based mobile money company. So they are classifications in the licenses that have been given by Bank of Ghana for the fintech sector.
Thank you very much. We go to the next. So Mr. Sam Amano will take the question on the evidence of how some Ghanaian companies have benefited. I'm sure you'll speak to the fintechs.
Sure. Thank you. So Ghanaian companies are actually in the heart of trade. If you look at what we're doing in the area of gold, if you look at what we're doing in the area of commodities, Ghanaians are actually exporting across the, what we call the regional economic clusters, even before AFTA was set up. And we're growing that, and interoperability is going to scale that volume of trade even further. But there's a very interesting opportunity for young people that want to be entrepreneurial, young people that want to start up their own companies. Today, one of our friends in the ecosystem, when they import the used clothing, jeans, they repackage it, put it online, and someone in Togo, someone in Benin can order it on WhatsApp and also on IG, Instagram. And within Instagram, these guys are able to quickly initiate payment services and collaborate and chat real time with the customers. Guess what? Her product is used clothing, jeans. And they are making a lot of money. Ghana apparently has about $300 million of import of used clothing. right? There's also another example. Mobile phone accessories. Everybody uses a phone. There are some countries in the sub-region that doesn't have that volume. So Ghana is a hub. They import to Ghana, and then guess what? They then sell to the regions. If you're looking for iPhones, Ghana has more iPhone shops than Liberia does. So if I want to buy an iPhone, I will go online and buy iPhone from Ghana, but to what? Liberia. And guess what? Logistics is part of it. Now, interoperability in trade, in payments, would actually increase this level of trade. So young people who are saying there are no jobs, actually there are a lot of opportunities, and we're treating you to connect to like an innovation hub so you can learn how to set up your business, get registered, so that you can start trading and creating jobs for yourself and opportunity for yourself. Thank you.
So, I mean, in a nutshell, competing in the global economy begins with the digital space. Shall we have some more questions? I'll take about 6, and so we've got 2 more batches to go. How do we use APN to make Ghana competitive? Second question.
What's the rapport between you after and all the sister agencies who are almost doing a similar thing or the same thing on the continent?
Okay, so the first question goes to Gehard, the second question goes to Gabby.
Yeah, thank you. I guess there's a lot in first mover advantage. Okay. APN has the advantage of proximity when it comes to the after secretariat, and so there's a kind of leverage that comes with. And indeed, the agenda that APN has set itself on to achieve, the issue of African integration and all that, looking at the fact that we are the ones who are promoting this, and the fact that we are doing this together with the private sector, there is an advantage that comes with. But you know, when it comes to African trade, the advantage that exists to be taken is for the private sector to identify and to look for the supporting structures and systems that will help them advance in their bid to take advantage of the opportunities that come. And so, look, I mean, we are starting this in Ghana. The ideas, the brainstorm sessions, as the executive chairman referred to, is being had with Ghanaian private sector operators. And so they would see the advantage first. And then we have the after secretariat here. So through the activities that APN is organizing, we are definitely positioning Ghana to take advantage of the opportunities that exist using the proximities of both APN and after, which are operating from Ghana. Yeah.
Maybe I'm being a bit hard-headed here. But there's a line you said that was exciting, that you will use APN to also be able to impress on policymakers to put together policies that will advance the prosperity we are all seeking. So I was expecting something like APN can also push policymakers to also scale down a few things so that the private sector will find it very, very interesting. So a lot of time, policymakers stifle the private sector, such that what you're saying, because it's a continent-wide thing, our colleagues in Nigeria will take up this, and policy may favor them more than policy favors my colleague Ghanaian, who will take up the same opportunity. So the question again is, how do you use APN to impress upon policymakers, where I'm talking about all of them, Bank of Ghana and what have you, so that we set up favorable terms that makes the private sector, we used to call it an enabling environment, but that environment currently is not that enabling. So how do we enable that environment so the private sector takes advantage of all that you are saying for the good of everybody, starting with my country, Ghana?
So the interesting thing about APN is the fact that we promote dialogues with the intention of developing the right framework, policy regimes, legal regimes, regulatory regimes. And the dialogue is between both political leaders and private sector operators and subject specialists. Okay. So you take interoperability, for example, that we are discussing today. It was the outcome of one of the dialogues that we had, and that brought all these people together, politicians, private sector. Beyond that dialogue, we are now working on developing a policy that will support interoperability. I believe your question is limited to how does that benefit Ghanaian private sector operators? How do we promote a situation where we take advantage of it first before others? The advantage exists in the fact that today we're sitting down with the chief executive of the telecoms chamber. Interoperability is a function promoted by both telecoms and the banking sector. And so this is where the policy initiatives start from. The advantage of proximity, the involvement of industry players, the conversations around it. All these lead to situations that offer Ghana the opportunity of taking advantage and being the front runner with some of these things. And as I said, a lot will depend upon the private sector and how they take advantage of these situations. We at APN can prod, but at the end of the day, Sam and his colleagues would have to take the lead in terms of what is it that ought to be done. Bearing in mind also that policy initiatives do not only come from government, they can come from the private sector as well. Thank you.
Right, so the next question goes to Gabby. It's about what are the collaborative efforts with other organizations with respect to policy, I think, across Africa.
Maybe let me focus on the symposium. If you look at our partners include GSMA, that's a GSM association for sub-Saharan Africa. Our partners include fintech companies, telcos, and the Ghanaian telcos are all part of it, as in MTN, Telecel, AT, is there any more? Assam. Okay. Okay. They are all part. We have even across Africa, we are looking at Safaricom, and all of them are part of what we are doing, because these are the GSMs. GSMA, they are all part of the association. We have the central banks, and we have the national communication authorities, and we are encouraging our partner here, NCA, to also get its partners across the continent to come on board, and which they are doing. It's also, to a point, a national security issue, so we are dealing with the security, second, because of data. And to a point, it is actually, it helps national security. I'll give you a typical example. I'm sure, was it last month, you heard that one gentleman got killed in his house by a helper, Adubuahi. Chris. You know how the gentleman or the suspect was apprehended? He went to Togo. His phone was off, and he took a decision to turn his phone on. And when he turned his phone on because he was communicating with another recruitment agency to get a job as a domestic helper for another victim, apparently. These are all allegations because the case is being put together. So when he came to Ghana, with all the phone calls that he made and arranged for another interview with another agency, that's when he got apprehended. So there's something they call passporting. Yeah? If we have a way, because we have a common way of, a common maybe ID. We have already ECOWAS ID, which is a national ID card. If we have a way to harmonize our national ID systems, and we are all connected to mobile phones, and we are making transactions through mobile phones, it's even better for national security because you can track people. So it's not necessarily a national security hazard, but it helps, if like, synchronizing information across borders in terms of how people are operating. So there's a positive aspect to it. So our partners are all these entities. And then, of course, you have the AFDB. You have Afri-Exim Bank. You have BADEA, which is the Arab Bank for Development Africa. They are also our partners. Stephanie, mention the others. Who are the other partners? The ECA, Economic Commission of Africa. Who are the others? Yes, we have Africa Soft Power, we have Smart Africa, and of course we have the Chamber of Telcos. So really, and the partnership, this is not a Ghana thing. Let's be clear. This is an African thing, a Pan-African sort of advocacy that we are doing, and it will benefit Ghanaian businesses. But APN happens to be just located in Ghana. But our focus is continent-wide. Thanks.
Right, thank you very much. I'll mention some of the partners again: the Presidency, the African Continental Free Trade Area, United Nations in Ghana, World Food Programme, UNDP, ECA, UNIDO, Afri-Exim Bank, BADEA, Africa Business Council, Africa America Institute, Africa Soft Power, GIPC. Those are our institutional partners. And then we've got our business partners, including some of the multinationals across the continent. We've got Telecel, we've got MTN, and a lot of other ones. There is a group called the G6 in telecoms, I think, and they are a collection of all the major telecommunications or telcos across the continent. And this includes MTN, Telecel, Accien, Orange. We've got AT, and then we've got some others like, I think, Safaricom, Ethiotel, and a few telecommunications companies from Morocco and Egypt. I think we have run out of time. We could have taken a few more questions, but we started late. And for that, we're sorry. We will have a last word by our General Manager, Stephanie Chiata.
French or English, as you prefer. So, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, so it's a pleasure to see how important this topic is to all of us. At Africa Prosperity Network, we pride ourselves with the honorable task of working for Africa prosperity. Our main asset at the Africa Prosperity Dialogues is built to foster this agenda. We have a number of activities planned for this year ahead of the next year's Africa Prosperity Dialogues. So next week we will attend our partners' annual meetings in Nassau, Bahamas. This is the annual meeting of Afri-Exim Bank. The 5th July, as we mentioned, we will host the symposium as mentioned today. I repeat the theme for you: scaling up interoperability using mobile money to buy and sell across Africa. We will present after the symposium, very important, the second policy proposal at the African Union Media Summit, hosted here in Accra, Ghana. In September, we will host the Global Africa Forum with our partner, the Africa America Institute, on the sidelines of other partners, the UN General Assembly. From September to December, we will have press conferences across Africa. We can't only keep that in Ghana, as our executive chairman mentioned, is African initiative, so we have to greet other country with our presence. So, and in November, we will have our prestigious cocktail partners. You are of course, all invited. And you also are invited to visit our website at africaprosperity.network.com for more information about our activities during the year. So once again, APN thanks you for being with us this morning, to helping us to advocate for the prosperity of Africa. And as the intervenant mentioned this morning, it's a common effort, so we can't expect nothing else than your help to relay all this information and to relay the symposium in July. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Stephanie. So in a nutshell, Africa is ahead of the curve. The platform we're talking about for digital transactions across Africa was started by PAPS, and that was before other constituencies around the world began it. There was a test somewhere in Asia called the M-Bridge. You can read on it. You journalists, I'm sure you're going to have some very good understandings from that. And the Bank of Ghana has been involved at the global level with Singapore in rolling out one of the incredible transactions, digital transactions in international trade. And this was done, I think, about a couple of weeks ago. I said Africa has been ahead of a curve. Think about 10, 15 years ago, a certain program called Ishaidi was started in Kenya, which led to the Internet of Things with its places of interest or points of interest. So we really are ahead of the curve if we can really relay these stories to our people to enjoy the benefits of the global economy. So we are very happy to have had you over here, the executive chairman and our partners who have graced this event with their presence. And thank you very much, General Manager, for helping put this together. Stephanie Jata, merci beaucoup. And so for journalists who were invited here, our head of media relations, Wilberforce Asari, will be seeing you when we're done with this. Thank you very much. Time is 10:58, and we're sorry for being 28 minutes late. Bye.